Hey guys, it is me, the former film student, back today with another episode of 31 Nights, 31 Frights, the series where I review a new horror film every day of October from the 1st all the way to the 31st. Guys, we are on episode 25. We have talked about 24 different horror films for 24 days straight. I am having a blast making these reviews. I hope you guys are enjoying them as much as I am making them. I love when I can actually sit down and review a movie, like actually record myself and not just my audio. It just feels a little bit more personable. It feels like I'm actually talking to you guys, the audience, instead of just you guys hearing me ramble about a film and not actually seeing me. So even though these videos take a little bit longer to make than just recording my audio and then putting some clips from the film over it, I do enjoy making these more. But with all that being said, let's talk about a genre that I have kind of ignored throughout this series, throughout the month of October, and that is sci-fi horror with Ridley Scott's 1979 masterpiece, Alien. So I decided to talk about Alien because I'm doing laundry right now, currently as we speak, and I threw this shirt on because it was one of my only clean shirts, and I was like, I kind of want to talk about that. And if you guys can't see my shirt, it's a xenomorph, but it's an ultrasound, and instead of a baby, it's a xenomorph. Thank you to my sister who got me this shirt 2 years ago. It's one of my favorite shirts. It's very nerdy, and I can acknowledge that. But anyway, I threw this shirt on and I was like, I was supposed to talk about this other horror film today, but I haven't really talked about sci-fi horror at all inside of this series, and so I might as well talk about one of the best to ever do it, and that is Ridley Scott with his 1979 masterpiece, Alien. I love Alien. When I was younger, I actually accidentally watched Aliens, the sequel film directed by James Cameron, before I watched the first Alien, and the reason for that was because my dumbass decided not to use the internet and look up the series because I was like, oh, it's called Aliens, so this must be the first one. It doesn't have a 2 in the title. It must not be the sequel. It must be the first one. So I rented Aliens from a video rental store. Shout out to any of you who remember video rental stores. Those were the days. I rented the second film in the franchise, Aliens, and I sat down and watched it, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is like, it's like these aliens from outer space fighting these space marines. The one-liners are awesome. The action scenes are great. They have a really great badass female character with Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley, who I'll get into in a minute. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. And then I went back and watched the original Alien, and I didn't like it as much. I was like, this is a little too slow for me. It's not as action packed, and that kind of threw me for a loop. Because normally when you watch franchises, a lot of the films sort of have a similar feel to it. Whereas Alien and Aliens feel like two very different films. Obviously, they're directed by two different directors, but even going past that, they're sort of two different genres. One is sci-fi horror and the other is sci-fi action. And I think that was the right call for James Cameron, because I think if they would have made another horror sci-fi based off of these characters and with xenomorphs as the villains again, it just wouldn't have worked as good. And I think the decision to just make it an action film in the second one was just a really, really smart direction to take the franchise. And after that, I think they should have stopped after the second Aliens, because obviously, if you guys don't know, David Fincher is my favorite director, and his first film that he ever made, his first feature film, was Alien 3. And Alien 3 is not a good film. I don't enjoy that movie much at all. I haven't seen it in a couple years, so maybe if I rewatch it now, I would enjoy it more. But as it stands, it's where the franchise started to go downhill. Obviously, Alien Resurrection, and Alien vs Predator, and all that garbage and nonsense. It just, again, if they would have stopped after Aliens, it would have been great. It would have been a nice 1-2 punch. You have this really great sci-fi horror film followed by this really great sci-fi action movie, and then the franchise just ended. Would have been so much cleaner, but obviously that's not how Hollywood works. I feel like I'm deviating. Again, as much as I love making these videos, it is a little harder to formulate my thoughts and coherently speak about a film than when I can actually just, type out a script and read it. That being said, this movie is fantastic. Ridley Scott did a wonderful job directing this movie. Right from the start of the film, you know that this is going to be a patient, slow burn type film, but my God, is the payoff worth it. There are so many great scenes in this film that really pay off a lot of the buildup that happens throughout the first and a majority of the second act. Obviously, one of the best and most iconic scenes in the film is the chest burst scene, and if you guys have not seen this movie, I implore you to turn this video off and go watch it. It is an excellent excellent film. If you're a fan of sci-fi, if you're a fan of horror, please go check it out. It is a great, great film, one of the best sci-fi films ever made. And that's not just me overhyping it. It is a truly incredible film from both a story and from a technical standpoint. And I'm just going to be talking about a couple of the scenes in it right now, mainly just one or two, but I want you guys to experience these scenes on your own. So anyway, yep, spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1. Alright, if you guys are still here, you must have seen the film or you do not care about spoilers. Anyway, the chest burster scene. My god, this scene is incredible. It is so well done and so professionally handled. And you see a lot of Ridley Scott showcasing his ability to show reservation as a director. And, you know, if a film was made today with this same sort of scene in modern day, it would not have played out as well because it would have been done, A, with probably CGI, which in 3, 4 years time would have made it look really dated, and that's, you know, supposing that the CGI is just good to begin with. There's a lot of films that come out that look dated the second they come out. Cough cough, Justice League. But anyway, they would have probably had really poorly done CGI, or at least CGI that wouldn't last very long, because CGI does not last that long. It's, you know, go and watch a film from 3, 4 years ago. Go watch a modern blockbuster from like 2015. You know, chances are the CGI probably doesn't look that good. Um, Anyway, second, it probably would have had really obnoxious and overbearing music to signify something big is happening. And three, it probably would have had really cheesy and over the top sound effects. And, you know, none of that happens in this scene. Everything works so well. There's not this big bombastic music. There's not these cheesy, crappy sound effects to, you know, make the scene more intense or whatnot, you know, and there's also just not CGI. It's great, great practical effects that to this day still look incredible. And that's what I love. You know, you go back and you watch films from 1970s and 1980s and, you know, sometimes even further back than that, and you see a lot of these practical effects work and you're like, that still looks really good, even if it's, you know, 40, 50 years later, this still looks really good and it holds up really well. Go back and watch the original Star Wars. It looks incredible. And again, I just love practical effects, and the chest burst scene is so incredibly well done in this film. Just watching Kane as he's, you know, having this sort of dinner with his friends, the other co-workers on the spaceship, and they're all just laughing and having a good time. And it's really the first scene where the film sort of flips switch and it becomes a full-fledged horror film at that point. And you just he starts coughing, he starts gagging, and then it just bursts out of his chest. And I love the reaction shot of the one character when the blood hits her in the face. Apparently that was unplanned, and it was the actor or actress's real, you know, reaction to the scene, which just makes it even that much better. I will say with that scene, I always describe that scene as one of the best examples of practical effects, followed by one of the worst examples, because you have that incredible scene where the chest burster bursts out of the guy's chest. Followed by right after that, it like sort of like skids across the table, and it looks really goofy and really silly. And again, this movie came out in 1979, and I'm not even going to try to do the quick math on how many years ago that was. But it really, you know, outside of that, this film is really well done from a lot of different standpoints. It is incredibly well shot. The opening scene and the opening sequence of the film is great. You get these really great wide shots of this spaceship that really just sort of set the tone for this very slow burn-esque psychological horror film. And I do consider it psychological because there's a lot to do in this film with the idea of being hunted by something and being, you know, kind of hunted down by this xenomorph, and they don't know what it is, they don't know what it can do, they don't know where it came from. So there's a lot of psychological horror inside of that, and the idea of just being sort of this prey getting hunted. And yeah, obviously, and I haven't even talked about Sigourney Weaver as, you know, Ellen Ripley. She is fucking phenomenal in this movie. If you guys want to see a really great badass female character in a, you know, sci-fi film, this is the one to do it. You know, the 70s and 80s, you talk about two of the most iconic characters in film history with Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley, and they both do such a great job. And not just their performances, but the way the characters are written. They're not just written as these, you know, complete badass characters who never have to struggle with anything, and they go in the complete opposite direction of the whole damsel in distress thing, which I hate the damsel in distress thing as well. Not every girl is this frail, weak person who needs saving. But also when they go on the complete opposite end of that and they make them a character who doesn't need anybody and can just handle every situation with ease, it's almost just as bad. And Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor are both written so well. You see them struggle, you see them have emotion, you see them have issues and struggle with certain scenarios inside of these films. And man, between the performances and how the characters are written, they're just two of my favorite characters of all time. Especially Ellen Ripley in like something like Aliens. I'm talking about Alien here, but in Aliens, you see that growth of her character. You see how she feels about these xenomorphs. You see her just become this stronger person. But she sort of starts out that way. She's a strong, independent character who can handle herself, but isn't someone who just gets out of every situation without having any issues. The musical composition in this film is also really, really spectacular. I love a lot of the tracks in this movie. They do a great job at really adding a lot of atmosphere and tone just with the music, combining that with the spectacular cinematography. There's a lot of really great shots in this movie. The shot when the xenomorph is sort of just hanging above the characters and you don't really notice it at first. Absolutely brilliant filmmaking. The claustrophobic aspect of the film, they do a really great job, even though there's a lot of great wide shots when the xenomorph is closing in on these characters and it gets really close to them. You have these really tight, really close shots that really just make you feel claustrophobic watching them and really put you into the mindset and the position of the characters. And it's just really incredibly well done from a lot of different technical standpoints. Like I said, the editing is also fantastic. The film was really well paced. It is a slower type film, but nothing ever feels wasted. Nothing ever feels drawn out. It always feels like everything is done to build tension, to build atmosphere, or to develop its characters. And I didn't even mention the other characters in the film. I think they do a wonderful job of really making you feel like this is a tight-knit crew of people who are friends. They care about each other. They're not just these stock characters that are put there to die. You feel really bad for a lot of them when they meet their fate. And in general, I just think that they do an excellent job of making you care about these characters, making them feel like they've been together and worked together for a long period of time. And the chemistry between all of them is really well done as well. So yeah, I think this film is absolutely fantastic from every technical standpoint. I think it's incredibly well shot. I think the performances, especially Sigourney Weaver, are fantastic. The directing by Ridley Scott is absolutely wonderful. It's a very well-paced film, albeit very slow at times. It never feels wasteful. It always feels like everything is done with purpose and intent, and even though the film is slower, I never felt bored while watching it. The practical effects are incredible. The chest burst scene, the practical prosthetic makeup of the xenomorph is absolutely spectacular. Go and watch this film and check out how the alien looks in this as opposed to something like Alien Covenant, which came out 3 or 4 years ago and looks like absolute garbage. It looks like a PS2 video game character. The comparisons are unbelievable, and I just don't understand why Hollywood isn't opting to use more practical effects and then blending CGI into it just to enhance it. Instead, they use CGI, which makes things look dated very quickly, and often the CGI, even on release day, is not very good. As a whole, Alien is one of the best, not only sci-fi films, but horror films ever made. Ridley Scott did a magnificent job with this film. I think it works from every conceivable standpoint, whether it's the technical aspects or the story or the characters. I think it all blends together to create a magnificently well-done film. I highly recommend Alien. If you guys have not seen it, I recommend checking out Alien and Aliens. I'm not going to be reviewing Aliens for this series because it is a sci-fi action movie. It doesn't really have a lot of horror elements, so there's no real reason to talk about it. I will probably eventually talk about it on this channel as it is one of my favorite action movies of all time. But I do recommend, if you plan on getting into this franchise, just watching Alien and Aliens. Steer clear of Alien 3. Don't watch Alien Resurrection. The Alien vs. Predator movies are, I guess, beer movies, those type of movies that I talk about on this channel that are probably fun if you grab a couple of drinks with some friends. But other than that, yeah, that is all I have to say for today, guys. Let me know in the comments down below if you've seen Alien. Let me know if you prefer Alien or Aliens. If you've seen both of them, I always want to know which film people prefer. Are you an Alien person or are you an Aliens person? Yeah, so do you prefer the more slower burn psychological horror sci-fi stuff, or do you prefer the more balls to the walls action sci-fi stuff? So anyway, let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on that. I do recommend this film, so if you do go watch it and you find it boring or you think it sucks, I do apologize. As always, if you liked this video, make sure to click the like button, subscribe to me if you want to hear more from me, and as always, I will see you guys on the next episode.